James Serpell is Professor of Animal Welfare at the University of Pennsylvania, and he is one of the few people from third countries participating in this European project, CALLISTO project. So he's bringing his long-lasting expertise in our project. And I would like to start to ask a question on the international movement of companion animals and its association to the risk of transmission of zoonosis from companion animals to humans.
Yes, well, in Europe and of course in North America and elsewhere, there's a great appetite for exotic animals, reptiles, exotic birds, amphibians, fish, and so on. And many of these animals are coming from tropical countries, and there's always a risk that one of these animals could bring in a disease, an infectious disease, that could be transmitted to human beings. And I guess a very simple example would be for concerns about avian influenza coming in, say, on a pet bird that's been brought in from a tropical country where something like avian influenza is endemic. So that movement of animals from these developing countries into Europe pose a significant risk, and the question is, what do we do about that? Do we ban the trade in all these exotic animals, or do we regulate the trade in some way? Do we screen the animals that are coming in to make sure they're not carrying anything? There are lots of issues to be addressed by this Callisto group in respect to that type of a problem.
And in Europe there is a ban. Are citizens enough aware of the risks they carry when they introduce in their homes such kind of animals, in your opinion?
It appears that they aren't, and what's interesting is that even if the pet stores and the animal dealers provide them with educational information that explains the risks, it looks as though most people don't absorb the information, or if they do absorb the information, they don't retain it. So they then go home and they allow young children to play with the reptile or whatever it is, and the child is then exposed to some of these diseases which are absolutely endemic in these species, especially reptiles. So salmonella is a constant risk from reptiles. Almost all reptiles carry salmonella, and there's nothing much you can do about that, except to be very, very scrupulously hygienic. If you handle one, you should, wash really well afterwards. And of course, a young child is not going to do that. A child's going to handle the animal and then put his fingers in his mouth.
So from home to the street, because another aspect is stray animals. And what about stray animals and the same risks?
Right, I mean, we have to make a distinction between an owned animal that is vaccinated, that has been wormed, that has had various kind of prophylactic medication, but is allowed to move around outside the house, and an animal that may be owned but only very loosely owned, and the owner doesn't vaccinate it and doesn't worm it. And these are the ones that pose the biggest risk. Those and the animals that don't have any owners. So there's no one treating those animals. And so those animals not only are coming in contact with people, they're coming in contact with livestock animals. They're shedding bacteria and viruses in feces when they go out into fields and things, which livestock can then ingest. They're coming in contact with wildlife, so there's a potential for them to pick up diseases from wildlife and then bring that back into the human situation. So this is the reason, they straddle all these boundaries between people, livestock, and wildlife, these free-roaming animals, and therefore they pose a special problem.
Is information about these risks sufficiently disseminated, in your opinion?
The impression I get from the discussions that have taken place in this Callisto conference is that no, is the answer. There's insufficient communications, there's insufficient information, balanced information on the risks and the benefits of owning pets. And it's, you know, you have to go and look for it, and it's on some website somewhere, but you know, different websites have a different perspective on it, depending on whether they're medical websites or veterinary websites or animal protection websites. So they're each presenting a different story. There doesn't seem to be one consistent story that the public can easily get.